Before the Aztecs, before the Inca, long before any empire carved its name into stone, the Maya told a story of two boys who descended into the land of the dead and outplayed death itself. This is the tale of Hunahpu and Xbalanque, the hero twins. Their story comes from the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Kayich Maya, written down in the 16th century but carrying memories far older than that. It is a text of creation, of gods and men, of the sky and the earth and everything between. Within its pages, Hunahpu and Xbalanque are described as the greatest ball players the world had ever seen. The Mesoamerican ball game was not a pastime. It was a ritual, a mirror of cosmic order. When the twins played, they were speaking a language the gods themselves understood. But before the twins could fulfill their destiny, they had to follow a path that their father had already walked and failed to return from. Deep beneath the surface of the earth lay Xbalanque, the Maya underworld. Its name means place of fear, and fear is what it was built to produce. Ruling over Xbalanque were 12 lords, the most powerful of whom were 1 death and 7 death. They sat on thrones of bone. They were patient. They were cruel, and they hated the sound of the ball game above because it disturbed their realm. When the twins' father, one Hunahpu, and his brother played ball on the earth's surface, the noise rumbled down into Xbalanque like thunder through hollow ground. The lords grew furious. They sent their owls, dark messengers, up to the surface with an invitation that was really a summons. "Come and play ball with us," said the lords. "Come down to Xbalanque." One Hunahpu accepted. He descended. He passed through the trials of the underworld, and he did not survive. The lords of Xbalanque killed him and buried his head in the fork of a calabash tree, where it hung like a skull among the gourds. But from that skull, life still spoke. When a young woman of Xbalanque named Blood Moon approached the tree, the skull spat into her palm. She became pregnant, and fleeing the rage of the underworld lords, she climbed back up to the world of the living, carrying the sons of the dead man within her. Those sons were Hunahpu and Xbalanque. When the hero twins were grown, they found their father's old ball game equipment, the rubber ball, the leather gear, buried beneath the floor of the family home. They began to play. The sound reached Xbalanque. The lords heard it. They sent their owls once more. The twins had been waiting for this invitation. They descended, not in ignorance, as their father had, but with cunning. They sent a mosquito ahead of them to bite each lord in turn, drawing out the names of 1 death and 7 death. The lords had planted wooden dummies to fool the twins at the entrance, but the twins knew which figures were real and which were false. They greeted only the true lords and refused to shake the hands of the mannequins. The lords were already losing ground, and the games had not yet begun. First came the dark house, a chamber of complete and suffocating blackness. The lords gave each visitor a torch and 2 cigars, expecting them to burn through the night and arrive in the morning with nothing left. The twins placed fireflies at the tips of the cigars and used a bright red macaw feather to mimic the torch's glow. At dawn, both cigars were intact. The lords had no explanation. Razor House came next, a chamber whose walls were lined with moving blades of volcanic glass. The twins spoke to the blades and asked them to be still, and the blades obeyed. In Jaguar House, the great cats circled and growled. The twins tossed them bones to gnaw on through the night, and the jaguars were content. Trial after trial, Cold House, Fire House, Bat House, the twins endured where their father had fallen. They did not boast. They did not break. They simply moved through each darkness with patience and with wit. At last came the ball game. This was what the lords had truly wanted. the chance to crush the sons of one Hunahpu as they had crushed the father. But the twins had not come to lose. The ball flew across the stone court. 1 death and 7 death pressed hard. They played with a skull disguised as a ball, a trick meant to distract and unsettle. But the twins recognized the deception and returned the skull's gaze without flinching. The game was long. The twins matched the lords at every turn, reading the court, controlling the rhythm. Xbalanque's most powerful rulers could not win, and the lords, who had never been denied anything beneath the earth, began to feel something unfamiliar. They began to feel afraid. The twins made a choice that no one had expected. They allowed themselves to die. They had already consulted a seer. They had already given a message to 2 wise men. When they ask for us by name, we will return. The lords of Xbalanque, drunk on what felt like victory, burned the twins' bodies and ground their bones to powder before casting the dust into the river. But the river carried them, and after 5 days, as the seer had foretold, the twins rose again from the water. First, they appeared as catfish, then as wandering performers, doing tricks and wonders that drew the attention of all Xbalanque. Word reached 1 death and 7 death. They summoned the performers, and the twins, disguised in humble clothing, performed their greatest act. They sacrificed a man before the lords and brought him back to life. The lords were astonished. They wanted that power for themselves. "Sacrifice us," the lords said. "Kill us, and then revive us as you did the man." The twins agreed. They killed 1 death. They killed 7 death. And then they simply stood there. They did not revive them. With the great lords of Xbalanque destroyed, the power of the underworld was broken. The twins rose. Hunahpu became the sun, burning and sovereign. Xbalanque became the moon, steady, silvered, following. And that is why the sun chases the moon across the sky. Not by accident, not by celestial mechanics alone, but because 2 brothers born of sorrow and cunning climbed out of the darkest place imaginable and carried the light back with them. The Maya knew something the modern world sometimes forgets, that the dead leave something behind, and that what rises from loss can illuminate the entire world. This has been the story of the hero twins, from the Popol Vuh, from the heart of a civilization that watched the sky more carefully than most of us ever will.